So I'm sitting here with my good friend, Stephen Sims. Thanks so much for having us in your home theater.
Hey, welcome to here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, this is actually the first time we've ever done a tour of a place that's not a studio. So it's a first.
I feel honored.
There we go, and it's just a beautiful home theater that I think that you've kind of had dreams of having a place like this for a while. But yeah, tell us a little bit about like your dream for this space or your vision for it.
I've been a media collector for many years. I was bitten by the Laserdisc bug. And I guess I fell down the rat hole when I realized that my 19-inch television was too small to enjoy the spectacle that is Spartacus. This resulted in a larger television set, which resulted in a projector, which resulted in a larger projector, and you know the drill.
Yeah.
And so when we were making modifications to the house after Jen and I got married, it became clear that we would need a space that was enclosed so that we would avoid light leakage. And at that point, we started thinking about what that might look like. And you were recommended to me by Jake Belzer, who owns a studio here in Bloomington.
Yeah.
I think it's Primary Sound. Jake said, well, you know, why don't you reach out to Gavin Haverstick? And I think that's how you and I made contact. And at that time, I really wasn't 100% sure what we wanted, but I knew that you were an expert, and so I would look to you for pointers.
Sure.
And I would look to my own tastes and experience to kind of guide us.
All right, so finally, this place is done, and it's so cool to be in here and be able to see all the hard work you put into this. So one of the first things to talk about in here are the wonderful Wisdom audio speakers that you chose, and I think you just did a great job with selecting obviously a super high-end speaker. So with the 11.4.6 system, you have a really even and consistent coverage throughout all of your chairs here, and no matter where you sit in this room, it's got a great sound. Like I remember when we talked early on, you said, I don't want anyone to sacrifice, you know, and even if they're in the front row versus the very back row, this is obviously the prime spot right in the center, but you get great coverage everywhere.
It was really important to make sure that everybody that was in the audience would have a great experience.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the way we've laid this out has really made that possible. I encountered John Heron from Trinov.
That's right.
And John Heron and Antoine Laborde of Trinov had co-authored a document on speaker placement.
Yeah.
And I became really fascinated with the math and the science that was involved in this document. And I guess that sort of helped guide the principles behind the speaker placement in this room.
Yeah, I know that we spent a lot of time on these side surrounds here, making sure that we got the angle right to cascade down along with the riser to make sure that we didn't have speakers that were above head level and they got even consistent coverage when they're standing or sitting wherever they are in here. I think that's a great benefit of this type of speaker in particular. And you also have these awesome subs, which is, we got 2 in the front, 2 in the back, something that we can help with obviously filling the room with low-end energy, but then also as a way to combat some room mode issues that we had in the room too.
Yeah, these are 4 JTR RS2s, so they're a total of 2 18-inch cones in each box for a total of 8 here in the room.
So you're not lacking for low-end energy.
There's quite a bit of low end here.
Then we have the height channels here, and from Wisdom Audio as well, and those we needed to get them at a specific height, but this room has a peaked vaulted ceiling, and so we ended up just putting them within ceiling clouds that Simplified Acoustics built, and ended up getting them exactly where we needed to be placed and get the angle in association with what Dolby wanted. It's a beautiful space visually, but I talk a little bit about speaker placement, like you mentioned. There's a lot that went into that, and I loved how we kind of worked together on that, because you would have some ideas ideas and looking at John's paper, and then bounce that off of me, and then we would have it in AutoCAD and just kind of make all of it work, because there's a lot going on. There's one, you chose a beautiful line of speakers from Wisdom Audio, which, had you always known that you wanted to go with Wisdom?
I was taken by the line source speaker. As a physics nut, I was intrigued by the notion that you could purchase a speaker that didn't obey the inverse square law.
Right.
So more or less, these speakers, all the bed channels, produce a cylinder of sound, not a sphere like a typical speaker. And because you lose that extra dimension by chopping off the top and the bottom, it provides extra power in the expanding cylinder.
Yeah.
And what that means is, ordinarily, in a spherical environment, the inverse square law says that when you double the distance, you lose 6 decibels.
Right.
With the cylinder, when you double the distance, you only lose 3 decibels of power. What this equates to, as perceptually, is it provides a more even experience for the people that are sitting in the space.
Yeah. All right, so we're here with Matt Call from Simplified Acoustics, and we've done a ton of projects together, and this is the first time that we've actually been able to be on video and talk about one of them in person. So this is a Steven Sims home theater, and you were brought in to make his kind of dream come true with this. He's always wanted a space like this. We worked with him on putting together design and renderings, and then at that point, it has to get built. And so that's where you come in and what you specialize in.
Yeah. And so, by the way, this is the Mac Daddy of all home theaters.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of them, and this is an amazing room.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Just the level of, Wisdom speakers being at the highest level, and how many, and the processing power of this room, and then acoustically, it's incredible.
So obviously, there's a lot of challenges that you face when you come into a job. You've got to work around existing obstacles. You've got maybe fix some things here and there, but you've got to also look at our renderings and say, okay, how do I pull that off and make it look just like that, which you did beautifully in here. But maybe talk a little bit about like what that process is like from like when you first arrive to when you finish. Like, step us through that process a little bit.
Okay. So a lot of it is just first looking at the drawings, and then it's funny how if you're just looking at drawings, it's hard to get an understanding of, and that's where your renderings always help. And believe it or not, renderings are always right. So we always refer to the rendering. There's been a couple of things where, we kind of look and we go, no, wait, that shows that light going that direction. And, it's like, that's okay. So that's a little bit of a change. But, hey, having those renderings is incredible. And that's what they have visually seen. So that's generally where we always go.
Yeah.
Looking at that layout of the room, what's existing, what are we going to have to plan for? So coming up with budget is always, and what's this going to cost? And then going in to the project in some of the great ones that come in early, like here with Steve's, where I'm only a couple hours away, so it was easy to come in and meet with the electrician and the builder and to be able to say, hey, this needs to be changed a little bit, or make sure you build it this way. So a lot of that talk ahead of time is, I've got a project going in Cincinnati where the architect drew it all out. Well, he didn't understand what the flow of the fabric is. So, this obviously is not one of your jobs. It was another home theater project. So just redrawing it. So, for example, in this room, you want fabric to be removable if something happens. A lot of rooms, the speakers aren't in the columns like this project, By the way, seeing these speakers is awesome because they're so incredible, and I'd be showing them off too. So
for sure.
But fabric has to be removable because a lot of times that the speakers are actually hidden. So redesigning the room so that you can make it maintainable and get at things is a little bit of a twist. So we look at things like that. Maintenance is an issue. Lighting, how are we going to be able to get at the lighting after the fact? And put it in properly.
One factor that we wanted to make sure you had in this room, we talked a lot about this, was the largest screen that we could fit, given the room dimensions. And so one of the things that we needed to do was find a screen that was woven in a way that would help with acoustical transparency, because we have these 3 LCRs right up front, and we wanted to make sure that it didn't create a dull sound for people out here, and so went with.
This is a Seymour screen with it's woven. It's a lower gain screen for a more natural look.
Nice, nice, and go ahead and put the screen up so we can show off these awesome speakers over the back here. And part of it, we had to make sure that we got this ceiling reveal so that the screen just kind of disappears when it's up and when you're just listening to music or something like that. And that kind of transitions into this vault, which then leads us to our ceiling clouds and the height channels and everything like that. There's also vertical corner trapping that we have in the rear corners to help with some of that low end. Because when I came here and did some acoustical testing, I was able to see which frequencies the room was struggling with and kind of map all that out. So, Simplified Acoustics did a great job with implementing everything, because when you walk in here, it kind of looks like it's just drywalled, but it's actually a lot is going on behind the fabric between perforated panels, bass trapping, absorption, just to get the right sound in here.
So there's in this room, just for example, in the LED lights that are going, well, we're right on the fabric.
Right.
So you have to use a very specific LED that doesn't color flare. That was a big thing back in the day. So we actually ended up doing the lighting in this room, is you're looking at, okay, what type of light do we need to be able to look right?
Yeah.
And color flare was the old RGB, red, green, blue making white. Well, you're going to be able to see that for about 6 inches. There's a color flare because we're right on the fabric.
Yeah.
So we got to look at, okay, let's do RGB white or tunable so that you can actually have a true white and it doesn't color flare.
Right.
So there's that type of thing. Then, okay, what's the cost on that? How much of that lighting do we need? And basically put the package together. Then come in and meet with everybody.
Right.
On this specific project, the electrician, had put in LED before, but not at this level.
Sure.
So he ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to take a pass, which is great. It's like, look, if you can't handle or you haven't done it before, let us go ahead and do it, because we'll do it when we're putting in treatment.
Right.
So this project, we not only got to pick the LED, but we actually installed it all.
Yeah.
And just looking at, okay, how's that lighting going to respond to the room, zoning it out. I remember having discussions with Steve saying, hey, let's do a couple zones so that you can leave the lights on when you're watching the movie. So being able to zone it right, and we do that in studios as well. But that's another factor. And then building it, how long is it going to take, coming up with schedule, and in this project, getting the columns right, because they actually flare out. There's an angle to every one, and the fabric does that with the column. Right. So it looks like we're actually, vertical, but we're not.
Yeah.
They all lean. So getting that to incorporate right was part of this project.
A big topic of conversation for us was how we're going to angle these side speakers, because we have a step down riser here, and we wanted the speakers to step down as well, but then also cant the speakers at an angle so that it lined up with this angled raked seating that we have.
I remember us sort of talking about a kind of tilted fishbowl of audio.
Yeah.
Yes, like an aquarium tank.
It turned out amazing. There was a lot of work, obviously, with mounting the speakers in the correct spots, but then the room itself had to be handled when it came to interior acoustical treatment, because I know that when we first started talking, there wasn't a huge need to isolate the space. Like, that wasn't our big focus here. We did some things to help with that, just to not disturb neighbors and all of those things. But when you invest in speakers like this, you want the room to sound great, and so we did a lot of treatment with Simplified Acoustics, did the install for it, but it all started when we were doing acoustical models of the space, figuring out what problems there were in the room and what we needed to do to solve them. I even came in and did acoustical testing when it was just a drywalled box, and trying to figure out what was happening frequency response wise and impulse response wise, and put together a treatment plan that manifests itself into a rendering, and then you got to see how it was all going to come together. So what was that like, kind of seeing that process with the renderings play out?
It was really an interesting process. I think that, again, as a guy who loves science, watching empirical measurements sort of transform into a design and then an implementation it was really just cool to be a part of.
You know, and this is something that I know that when I first arrived here on site, you had a setup right in this area, and that 5.1 system you mentioned, and yeah, I mean, it was nice, it sounded good, but it wasn't this. You know, like this seems to be a step up. So another thing that we were looking at when we were doing the 3D model of this space was getting a projector in here, and it's a large projector, and we needed to make sure that it was free and clear from any sort of ceiling clouds or other things that we had going on in the room. And so tell me a little bit about the JVC projector you chose.
So this is JVC NZ9. So it is a laser projector, which has 20,000 hour lifetime. I think that it has built-in tone mapping. I think that we've opted to try the low-end MAD VR unit for tone mapping. It's really worked out quite nicely. The NZ9 has the largest lens of that run of projectors. Now, I think we started quite a while back, and there's a new generation of JVC projectors, but I'm really quite happy with this.
That's great. I know some challenges here, and we wanted to retain the skylights that were in the space already, and so I know that you have blinds over those, and just making sure that during the day, if you want to watch a film, it's as dark as can be in here. And this projector obviously helps out a ton with that.
And then the cathedral ceiling, that was fun. So we have bass traps that are up along the upper ceiling line. So how do we get that to tuck and have lighting in it, along with shelving and different things, or at least a little flare piece, so you don't see the light in your eyes.
On a project like this, how long, approximately, how many weeks does it take to complete something?
We were in here 2 weeks for the build, and then just a couple days to tuck fabric, but then lighting was another 5 days. Yeah. My buddy Mark, he's an engineer, so like you, and he worked with Steve to say, okay, what type of lighting controller do you want? And Steve's amazing in his right own, so he understands, I'll just use this system, that way I can talk to it. And so there's a little bit of work to just say, all right, let's get the right control system. A lot of times if we're working with an integrator, they'll have their own DMX software. So we're saying, okay, how do we get those two to work together? That's on the lighting side.
Sure.
Now, if they're handling all that install, then it's working with, whoever's going to install it. If it's an integrator, hey, your guys are going to have to be here at this time, because a lot of it stages up.
Sure.
Be here once we get structure in, pull wire, and then we'll, sometimes that structure actually the wiring runs inside our acoustic system.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I know that there's a lot of framing out to get to the right depth. A lot of times these walls are not exactly straight, and you've got to work around some things. And so I think one of the biggest attributes that you have is just being flexible on the spot to be able to adapt to whatever needs to happen. So with this job in particular, were there any unique details that you kind of threw a curveball at you a little bit?
Yeah, a lot. We've already talked about the lighting, getting the lighting right, and being angled columns and different things, and Steven, this is obviously his room. He is an audiophile at the highest end, so just being able to hear the nuance. And we did a lot of speaker placement where, in the redesign of the Atmos and getting that, so moving speakers to make sure they're in the right position so that you're completely enveloped properly. With the Atmos, it brings in another level. And then also being able to work with the projector and getting those sight lines. Unfortunately, we had some limitations in the header above the screen.
Right.
So how do we get the projector to work in concert with the surround speakers and get the right sight lines? So that's always an issue.
Yeah, everything has to play well together. It's like, it's not just one detail can be done really well and the rest of them can be so-so. Like, it has to be all of them coming together to make it special. And I just really appreciate you, not only on this job, but all the other jobs that we worked together on. But it's a special talent to be able to come in here and make something happen that previously just existed in a computer. And so I think that your skill set, your team can always take care of these jobs for us, and I appreciate all you do.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun because being able to see it, I've done enough of them that where you pretty much know what it's going to look like, but really when you finally see it like this and the lighting's right and everything looks great, you're like, that is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I know that Trinov was a big part of this process as well. You worked closely with that company to dial things in with the speaker tuning, and what was that process like? Was it fairly in-depth, or was it a pretty easy, seamless process?
It was really quite easy. I think that, the unit itself is an altitude 32, so it's capable of providing 32 independent channels.
Yeah.
In this case, we only needed 3 sets of 8, so 24 channels. So for amplification, we opted for the amplitude 16, so 16 channels in one chassis. We're using 14 of those 16 here. The mains are powered by Buckeye amplifiers, which are made by Buckeye Amps in Ohio. But the Trinov provides a unique processing power, the likes of which you're not going to find in any other processor.
Yeah.
As a guy who is a Linux fan, it was nice to, while researching this project, discover that at its core is a Linux box.
Yeah.
And that, Antoine Laborde used this, as a prototype for research. And being a big research fan, it was exciting to sort of feel like I'm a part of this acoustic research that is ongoing.
Yeah, well, and we use Trinovs a ton in the studios that we design because there are a lot of mix engineers. Every room, there's going to be challenges that most of them can be overcome with proper acoustical treatment, but there's always compromises and things that we have to work around. And so having a system like that can do some room correction, but time alignment, all the other things, it's our studio mix engineers call it a cheat code. It's like the room already sounds great, but then you add that extra level that the Trinov can offer, and it makes a world of difference.
And if you A/B without the Trinov correction and with the Trinov correction in this space, it is like night and day. Yeah. You've taken it as far as you can with the excellent acoustic treatment in this space. I mean, when you walk through the door, you can tell that this is an acoustically treated space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. With this project, obviously this is a home theater, and most of our audience knows us as studio designers, but there's so much that goes into a home theater that's very similar to a studio. Now, in this case, we have multiple listening positions compared to a control room in a studio might just have one sweet spot that we're trying to dial into. But there's a lot of the same issues that we deal with as far as room modes and first reflection points and all of that. And our goal is just to create a space, any space that we work in is accurate and is inspiring to people. And so I know that obviously every project takes a bit of time depending on, contractor availability and different things that you have to go through. But is this space like what you envisioned that it would be?
This is better than I envisioned it being in terms of, discrete spatiality. I've been amazed in terms of comfort, in terms of serenity that you get in this space when you close the door. It's been lovely.
I know that one of the process that we went through was to go to CEDIA headquarters in Fishers, Indiana, up near where I live, so you could actually tour that space and see their projectors and listen to their sound systems. And I guess how much of, when it comes to your projector and speakers and everything like that, was something that you went out and listened to or viewed before you decided to purchase it?
In the case of the projector, I was just basing it on reviews. The screen was, again, based on reviews and math.
Yeah.
In the case of the speakers, I was lucky enough to be invited to Chuck Gerlach's house outside of Atlanta. And Chuck has an environment that's quite a bit like this one. And having experienced that, I knew that I wanted that experience in my home.
Yeah.
That at the time was the best sound that I had experienced outside of a live performance.
Wow. Yeah, that's a game changer. I always tell people when you're choosing speakers, it's always best to experience it firsthand and get an understanding of what you're in for, because there's some subjectivity to every speaker. Like some people trend towards a certain brand over the other, but the Wisdom Audio speakers, it's hard to go wrong with that. Well, Stephen, thank you again for welcoming us back into your home, and it's just so cool to see this finished. You know, I know that there's a lot of hard work that went into this, and I know it was a dream of yours to have a space like this, and the fact that it's a reality now is pretty special. So,
thanks so much for helping make it happen.
Yeah, and in the process, we got to become good friends, and that's something that will continue. I got to figure out what movie I'll come back and watch with you in this space. So
keep me posted. We'll make it happen.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.